everybody ready?
Yes.
You guys ready? All right, I am as well.
Good morning. I'm Blaire, Visser, and my group members are Brayden, Ireland, Maggie, Gilchrist, and Saavedra. We are exploring the topic of attempted suicides. 3,703 teens across the nation attempt suicide daily.
Suicide is ranked the third leading cause of death in teens. 4 out of 5 teens consider suicide. 10 to 20 million attempt suicide, and 50 to 120 million are affected, whether they're parents, friends, or siblings. The suicide rate has risen immensely over the last 30 years. 130 suicide deaths occur daily. 1 suicide death occurs every 11 minutes.
Every 40 seconds, someone attempts suicide. Thankfully, not all of these are terminal, but over the course of this presentation, about 11 people will have tried. Just think about that one for a minute.
Our overall research question was, to what extent do household circumstances lead to adolescents' attempted suicide?
A group of researchers with European child and adolescent psychiatry collected this data. You can see how during a child's teenage years, there is a peak in attempted suicides. These numbers are not only true for Europe, but for the entire world. Why is this? The problems we found were sexual abuse, parent deprivation, financial stability, and genetic predisposition. Child sexual abuse and suicide are 2 topics that people know are problems. However, they go hand in hand more than some realize. For example, the founder and CEO of Icelandic Center for Social Research and Analysis collected this data. She found that studies have shown that sexual abuse increases the likelihood of mental illnesses leading to suicide. Children are more likely to be abused than adults. Children who live with both biological parents are less likely than those who live with only one or neither. In a minute, Blaire will explain how a parent being absent also increases the risk of suicide. After being sexually abused, kids are more likely to develop behavioral problems, mental health issues, and are at a greater risk for attempting suicide. Just to give you a perspective on how much sexual abuse is a problem, about 1 in 4 kids are abused. That's roughly 25% of your child's class.
Parent deprivation can be described as the absence of a parent figure through either divorce and separation or death. Deprivation can also include other factors like mental absence, abandonment, neglect, and mental or physical abuse, as Ashley touched on earlier. Results from a study conducted in the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary showed that 70% of the 200 participants who attempted suicide came from broken homes. The psychological causes of suicide appear to be identical to the psychological effects of a broken home. If marital dysfunction or present, conflict increases, typically resulting in low cohesion families. Family cohesion can apply to all types of families, and it is the emotional bonds between family members. The Beck Scale of Suicide Ideation, or the BSI, is a questionnaire that assesses an individual's suicidality. Dr. Suzanne Miller, a Harvard graduate, conducted a study using the BSI to evaluate family cohesion and family conflict as risk factors for a teen's attempted suicides. Results displayed that adolescents who reported low family cohesion reported mean BSI scores that were almost 3 times greater than those from high cohesion families. Parent deprivation can strip a child of the love and care that is imperative to their healthy development. They may feel a sense of loneliness and abandonment due to the loss of a trusted person in their lives. Emotions such as these can accumulate in these adolescents, ultimately resulting in their suicide attempts and suicide ideation.
Financial stability. Dr. Daniel Eisenberg, professor of health policy of management and Fielding School of Public Health at the University of California, Los Angeles, said that there is a need to address mental health in young adult populations, particularly in those of lower socioeconomic status. Dr. Eisenberg also helped the University of Michigan School of Public Health conduct a study in which they found that university students were more likely to screen positive for depression and anxiety disorders. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans say that they have considered skipping or have skipped going to the doctor when they needed mental health care because of financial concerns. Those who grew up with financial struggles are more likely to have suicidal thoughts. There is an obvious connection between the financial status and mental health of an individual. This graph shows that of the top 4 most significant causes of stress, money is at the top. This same study also found that parents experience more extreme stress than their counterparts of non-parents, which adds on to what Blaire was talking about in parent deprivation.
Mood disorders such as bipolar disorder and major depressive disorder place people at an extremely high risk for suicide. Majority of people who attempt suicide have experienced depression. Serotonin deficiency disorders like anxiety disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder place people at a large risk for at least one suicide attempt. These mental disorders can go undiagnosed for a long time as symptoms don't always appear until puberty or a traumatic event like Ashley previously mentioned triggers the disorder. These graphics explain that 90% of people who commit suicide have underlying mental health disorders. This one explains that 50% of people who commit suicide have experienced depression. 70% of people with anxiety disorder have at least one suicide attempt. 80% of people with borderline personality disorder have at least one suicide attempt. 20 to 50% of people with bipolar disorder typically have at least one suicide attempt, and 40% of those diagnosed with schizophrenia have at least one suicide attempt. These two chemicals on the screen are dopamine and serotonin. Lacking these chemicals are associated with anxiety, depression, and other mental health disorders.
Our first solution for this issue would be to improve the current suicide hotlines / prevention organizations by educating the youth on depression and suicidal behaviors, restricting firearm access of at-risk individuals, and our first solution for this issue would be to improve the current suicide hotlines / prevention organizations by educating the youth on depression and suicidal behaviors, restricting firearm access of at-risk individuals, and the potential use of ketamine, the pharmaceutical, as a reduced